Okay, are you tired of me yet? Here we go with another excerpt of how all this stuff works in the judicial branch. Today we're going to do checks and balances. Okay. If you are still unclear about checks and balances, then you should tune in on Thursday at 1 o'clock because I'll be going over checks and balances. And checks and balances include judicial review, which a lot of you said was confusing for you. So here we are. All of our branches have checks on each other. We've talked about some of those, some of the easy ones. The ones in the court system aren't as easy to find, but we're going to work on that here. Um, so, one of the ways that the court can check the other branches is through judicial review. And what that means is a court case comes to the Supreme Court, and the court has the ability to look at laws or executive actions and declare them unconstitutional. That's the power of judicial review. That's what it is. Now, how do those court cases get into the court? Um, the law, okay, the act of Congress or the law or the executive action has to have harmed somebody. And the person who is harmed would then bring a case against them. You don't take all laws and put them through the court to see if they're constitutional. We trust that our Congress is making constitutional laws. If they aren't, we have a bigger problem, and that's a different problem, and we vote them out. But we trust that the Congress is making constitutional laws. So, what the courts can do is if someone is harmed by a law or an executive action and they feel like it's important and they should not have been harmed, then they can bring a case to the court. For executive action, the immigration stuff, people were harmed based on the new immigration laws when Donald Trump came in, and therefore the attorneys general of the states where the people were harmed were able to bring an action into the court. They were found constitutional. Nobody talked about that because media bias and all that. But the immigration laws that Trump put into place were found constitutional once they went to the Supreme Court. So that's how judicial review works. If you have more questions on that, tune in at 1 o'clock. Each decision or the holding by the Supreme Court that becomes case law. Okay, so it's a law made by the court, not a law made by Congress. It's not legislation, it's case law. This case law sets precedents. And what that means, if you set a precedent, is what was determined here in the court is now the law of the land. And so if another case comes up dealing with a similar thing, the courts don't even really need to deal with it because they can say, no, no, we have case law here. The court has already decided we would decide the same way, so we're not taking this case. Okay, or this is how we're going to rule in this case. Some people, you won't even bring your case because you already know how the court is going to rule. Okay, so these are the powers that the court has over the other branches. If we continue into how we check the Supreme Court, because that's an awful lot of power that they have, how do we check their power? And that's here. Congress determines the number and size of the courts. We learned that when we looked at Article 3. And what is the power that Congress has? Congress determines how many courts we're going to have, how big they are going to be, how many judges are going to be on each of those. They make all of those determinations. Excuse me. The president then appoints all of the federal judges and justices. That's his or her job, is to appoint all of those people. That's his power over the court. If you want to get on the court, you are going to make nice with the president because he's the one that's going to appoint you. And then Congress is going to approve those judges and justices. Specifically, the Senate approves the judges and justices. They go through the Senate Judiciary Committee, and there's a whole process there. But Congress approves them. That is their check on the judicial branch because they get the appointees and then they do their own vetting and they do their own hearings and examine each of these people and then they determine whether or not they're going to approve of those. Lastly, we're going to get rid of that little notice. Lastly, Congress has the power of impeachment over judges and justices, and it works much the same way as it does with the president, so that the House would impeach or actually accuse, and then the Senate would hold the trial. So those are some of the checks that we have on the court. So no branch is all powerful. Everybody has limits, and those would